Kristine Ballard.
And I'm Melony Smirniotis.
And welcome to Art and Up, the place where creatives come to connect, cultivate and support each other's artistic journey. Today, we are off to the UK and we are going to interview the unstoppable
Dave Sharp. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me, guys. The unstoppable. Yeah, I've never been called that before.
Ooh,
well
yeah, I'm taking that one
on your Insta.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Were you always unstoppable? Were you always creative?
Yeah, you know what? It's the older you get, the more you start to look back and sort of get a better idea of sort of summarizing a bit more of what you actually have been like up till now. From sort of speaking to people a bit more who know you that well, and you realize, yeah, maybe I was pretty unstoppable, but you know, most of the time you don't think like that. But yeah, I definitely was. My earliest memories when I was, God, I don't know, 4, maybe younger. All my earliest memories were generally to do with painting and drawing and sort of they're very easy to access. Drawing. It was funny. I was thinking about it the other day because what I do now as a job most of the time is painting live from memory, and performing it. And one of the earliest memories I've got was being with my family in the lounge and then pretending to take a photo with the family camera and then go next door and sort of trying to draw from memory what they all looked like and come back in and saying I've developed the photo. I mean, it was crap, but my parents would always humor that it looked just like a photo. But I was thinking about that the other day, that maybe even then I was sort of into some sort of memory thing to do with art.
So Dave, did you always, you were doing art at school? Were you, when you were younger, were you always doing those creative pursuits as a student? And then when did you decide that this was what you wanted to do for your life? When did you really decide, I want to be an artist?
I painted and really stuck to it all the way through school. I'd be paid by friends to do their bubble writing in class. Yeah. I was doing all that. Even in primary school, I would get out of class to do a painting or some sort of Roman spear or something, just anything I'd get out of class. I'd be the artist that they would use for all those things. And I also got really into music when I was in school and drumming, and got in a band and kind of caused a bit of a crossroads where I was so in love with performing that it was starting to confuse what I was going to do after school. But I kind of realized quite early on that I'd always do music as a hobby. Just easily pick up someone or be in a band. But the art side was something that if I didn't concentrate, so if I'd gone to do uni and I'd gone to do music, I was worried that the art thing would have been a bit all over the place and I wouldn't have stuck to something or kind of worked out where I wanted to go with it. So I kind of did the order that definitely worked out, which is to go and study art and just do the music thing on the side. And that kind of worked pretty well and kind of how I thought. But yeah, it's funny in school because, being an artist is quite risky, and no one I really knew was doing it, how I was kind of going down that route. And it can get very confusing. And I went and tried to do a course straight out of school, Art Foundation. Don't know if you have that over there. You kind of do it a year where it's like one after school, and you go and do an Art Foundation, and you kind of get thrown and just try all kinds of different things. To try and work out what you want to do.
Yeah, certificate, or it's an add-on, so that when you go and do a degree over here in the arts, in fine arts, that it makes up your credit points.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's funny. It sounds a bit more like America that you have to kind of do certain things to get to the next bit. But this was more to just kind of find your feet a bit more. And it didn't work for me at all. It was I don't know, it was all a little bit I don't know, it wasn't really learning skills. It was more about constantly asking, why are you painting this? And it was just too much. It was like 17 and I just wanted to do paintings of, famous rock stars. And, the tutors were just sort of constantly saying, yeah, but why are you painting this? And he's like, I don't know. I mean, why not? Yeah. And it kind of put me off. So, yeah, I've been in and out of uni many times before finally finishing one, but
yeah, it's
not for me.
Yeah, and that's really good for the people watching to know, because it's not for everyone. But I'm just having a sneak peek about what's behind you in terms of your art. And wow, can you talk us through where you actually paint? Where's your studio? Do you have a studio? What were you doing?
Yeah, to be honest, I would have probably filmed in my studio, but the Wi-Fi is all over the place. So just being at home. So this is I put these here. They're normally a bit up on the fireplace, but I put them here to kind of maybe to remind me of some areas that I've been working on over the last year. But the Van Gogh behind me, which is, by Van Gogh. I've got to stop saying Van Gogh. I'm sure it's Van Gogh or Van Gogh or Han Gogh. But Van Gogh is American, and I've got to stop saying that, man. I've got to represent Van Gogh. That sounds weird, isn't it? Anyway, so I did. It's really confusing on here. I did the painting of Van Gogh. I've done it again. In the first lockdown, and it really helped because I feel like the sort of term that I've had in my head for a while is like when in doubt, when you're not sure what to paint, copy from someone that you love, copy a master. And I had done a painting of him in the first lockdown and learned so much from studying just one of his paintings that I still apply to a lot of my work now. His color palette I've always related to and loved, and by doing one of his paintings, you don't half get a lot more insight, and that's a great way to learn and to improve, is to do. And I've been doing a few more since of different famous artists, and would love to really dedicate a lot of time to just studying it. So he kind of he stays in my lounge, but he's a bit starey sometimes. I have a lot of stuff that end up in my house, a kind of stuff that I've tried and I like them. I can live around them, but they're not necessarily all part of the same style. But from getting into yoga again in lockdown, I kind of realized in being in a very Zen state that a lot of the paintings were very starey. So these days, a lot of my paintings, they don't look straight at the camera anymore. I've started to, because on a certain day at a certain time, you suddenly just realize that everyone in your lounge is looking at you. It's really intense, man, if they follow you around the room. So he's the last guy now in my lounge. Everyone else is looking away. And these tiger paintings were another just phase where I suddenly thought, I like suits and I like tigers. I might put some tigers in some suits. And these were three. There's another one out of shot. Were just three that I tried out. They're smoking, and these, as cool as smoking looks, it's so out of date that smoking tigers is just confusing as it gets. So the next batch are going to be not with vapes, just no smoking at all. But I kind of like these. These were actually done in oil as well, so they're kind of unfinished. I went through an oil phase, which might come back into in a bit, but yeah.
So is that there, Dave? Like it sounds like, artists are always experimenting, and we like that, but it might not fit into what people expect of us. But that's the trick, isn't it? To create that evolution so it all does, in hindsight, it will flow into each other. So how do you plan your art? It sounds like you've got lots of ideas. Do you have a process of how you start a work and plan that into a painting, or is it just let's have a go?
The romantic answer is I just have a go. I just get a canvas out and just start painting. And I used to do that and do that less and less because the feeling of it going wrong just does my head in so much that I try and prepare more and more, just because, yeah, you sort of picture this version of you in the studio, you know, just like you've been there for 12 hours and you just throw in paint, and it's just so romantic until it goes really wrong. And it's like, I'm sure I'm better at this by this point. So I try and plan it more and more these days. But one area I like to play around with a lot for inspiration and just is Pinterest. You know, I like to just make folders on there. So, you know, for the tigers and suits, was just looking at loads of people in suits and then loads of tigers and sort of trying to get a vibe there. Pretty much every area that I'm doing. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of plant paintings, and you know, you start looking at artists that might inspire you. So I just love Pinterest for that. You can make lots of folders and go back to them. Sometimes just get a bit of inspiration. Try not to stay in there too long, because you turn into a weirdo where that's all you're doing is just being on Pinterest, and it's never ending. But my iPad is also a very close friend of mine. I went through a phase recently of going back to sketchbooks just to kind of get the feeling of drawing again in sketchbooks, but it was a bit of a phase. My iPad, I just love it because you can really plan out compositions, and you can play around in Lightroom and get some sort of different color palettes, and just like get to know what you would like as the finished piece a lot better than just going hell for leather straight away, which is what I used to do. And now I like to try a lot of different options of the same composition and play around with it and sort of just plan it a lot more. So by the time I'm actually doing the painting, I kind of maybe might do a few different options, but I like the painting bit the most, and I want it to look how I see in my head. And for the sake of you know, as I say, just being in the studio and being reckless, which is fun for a bit, but it's also fun to get to the point that you want to get to and how you envision it. So
that fits in well, Dave, to my next question, and that would be, especially when it comes to planning out materials. You briefly talked about oils. What are you using at the moment? What's your favorite materials? And I know how expensive they are, and you don't want to be, you know, wasteful as well. So that's all part of that. For me, it is. And it's, I don't want to be throwing things around.
Do you use oil?
Sorry?
Do you use oil in yours?
Every painting for me is a different combination of materials. There's a lot of experimenting that goes in behind the scenes before I...
It's very thick, isn't it?
It is.
Some of your paint. Yeah.
Use the oil paint. I'm an oil painter, but I start with
I only saw your work today, by the way. It's very nice, Kristine. You both got a very nice style. I've been scrolling quite a lot. It was my you see, it's sometimes my autofocus cat grabs Van Gogh behind me. He tries to video bomb. Yeah.
I like it.
Materials.
Materials. I've mostly used acrylics. For my live paintings, I tried everything because I didn't really have anyone to tell me otherwise, and then finally realized that, you know, emulsion paint, latex that you paint walls with, because they come in big sizes, that's what I use for them. And I went through a phase of using them also for commissions and stuff, but they're particularly flat by the time they dry, and something that acrylic paint I love. And I always used Daly and Rowney and never really questioned it until about, I don't know, a year ago. And one of my friends in Bristol was like, have you tried golden heavy body acrylics? And so got into them. I mean, they're so expensive, really, for like a tube that big. You know, some of them are £15, which is crazy. And the amount that I use, it turned me into a bit of a weird painter where I wasn't as loose. I was kind of being a bit too calculated. As much as I like to plan out paintings on my iPad and stuff, you know, when it comes down to it, it's all very loose and experimentation, and all that is very you can only get that from doing the painting itself. But when I got these more expensive ones, I was kind of being a bit more careful, and I was trying to like decide on the final color. And my paintings are got all different colors, and it turned into a very sort of safe version of what I was trying to get across. And I also went through an oil. It's the first lockdown. I thought I was really curious to see what oil paintings would be like as an option, because a lot of the people that I follow on Instagram are all oil painters. I'm like, am I missing out on something here? And so I went really deep in it, loads of YouTube videos, loads of research, and, you know, trying to mix just to get one color. So many oil paints do not mix together. And like, I was enjoying it for a while. And then, you know, I was so used to getting the sort of fluorescent vibes going, and that's really pretty hard to get with oil, especially the top end fluorescents. They don't really do fluorescent oil. I think you can get it in a powder, possibly from Australia, from what I know. And yeah, I went through a big phase. And what's funny was I was at home with my parents in the first lockdown, and I was getting into oils, and they know my work so well, and they love my acrylic paintings, and they were never really on board with it. And they were just like, I was constantly trying to persuade them that this is where I should be going. And like, I mean, it's good, Dave, it's good. I do like your acrylics, though. It's like, oh, just don't tell me that. And after all of that, I got to a point where I've come full circle, where I kind of go, I start with the cheaper acrylics and keep that flow going, where I'm not thinking and worried about it. And then I add on the more expensive ones once as the top layer. But, you know, the bit that I was doing for so many years was the right way for me to paint, you know, mixing on the walls, mixing on the, you know, anything, and just kind of keeping it very loose and painting very fast and getting down the sort of the instinct that's coming out of my head of just going, put that there, blah, blah, blah. As opposed to like, you know, so it's pretty interesting now, because there was a point where I was feeling, I wasn't very content, and I kept thinking I should be trying that. I think that would make a better painting. And it's good feeling to paint now, knowing that I have tried a lot of pretty hardcore areas that I wanted to try. So when I paint now, I kind of know what's what a lot more, and I do appreciate what makes my style a bit more me, and what makes me.
About your artwork, what is the focus of your art? I can guess that it's a bit pop art, but do you have a main focus? Is it color, or the medium, or, as you mentioned, figurative?
I think it does change a little bit what my focus is. But some of the things stay, you know, the same at every point. I think the color thing, you know, I started more as trying to do very realistic paintings in my sort of early 20s at uni and stuff, and went through quite a lot of different areas of trying to do hyper realistic and all these things. And then kind of when I stopped not caring, but I just stopped thinking too much and just grabbed any kinds of paint and did like a very overly colorful painting. I thought, well, I like this, and that I might jump around with the subject and the style and all these things, but the color palette has generally stayed. So, you know, I've generally kept it colorful for a while. So that tends to stay as one of the main things that I always like to include. But I think I'm just a big fan of trying to make progress as an artist like that. I don't tend to stay on the same thing for too long. So in some respects, I kind of wish I do. I follow a lot of artists that, you know, they basically draw a few different circles or something like that. But they've been sticking at it for so many years, and it's quite impressive that they stick to that style. But I tend to jump around after. I'll do like a few paintings in a certain style with a certain subject, and then I'm thinking, this is it. This is all I'm going to do now. And then I start to kind of wander off and move on to something else. So yeah.
What about your discipline? How do you actually schedule? Do you have a schedule? Do you schedule time throughout the day? Do you get up at a particular time or paint at a particular time? What's your schedule?
I think I have a bit more. I have like a philosophy that I try and stick to with you know, when there was the lockdown and you get used to painting at home, you sort of naturally get to a point where it opens up again. You think, I set up a second studio in the house just for convenience, and I was like, I'll paint more at home. And I've realized that wasn't a good move for me. Like, I try and just go to the studio every day. It's the studio I'm at now is 5 minutes away. Just if I want to paint at the studio, I get the most done. It gets me out of the house. And yeah, one of my sort of philosophies is just try and go to the studio every day. Just go there and do something. And also, Saturdays especially is something where my schedule has changed a bit, where I've tried to go in on a Saturday, no matter what state I'm in, and just do something, but not something that I've been doing all week. If I've been doing commissions all week, and don't go in and try and do more commissions on a Saturday, but go in and try and do something different. And I feel like there is where I get my extra creative progress. Trying different things on a Saturday seems to have worked. Not a Sunday, a Saturday. But I try and, I don't know if you saw my Instagram, I'm taking, a nice clean month off having any booze or, eating crap. And my schedule, you turn into like a superhero version of yourself. If you're not like, I can get up as early as I want and then go out for a run and then do yoga, and it all slots in, and you like turn into this workhorse where you just paint and straight through to the evening and the night, because you start socializing less, and it's amazing, and I love having these breaks. I did like 5 months of it last year and just blew my mind. And the only reason I sort of stopped is sometimes you get a bit sick of thinking so perfect all the time. I just need a break, man. A few beers, but yeah, I'm literally in that right now. And you can just feel everything day by day. Your ideal schedule starts to really come into fruition, and before you know it, you're just bossing it all the time. And I'm looking forward to it. Yoga goes so hand in hand with this kind of point. When I've done yoga and I've had a heavy weekend and I try and do it in the week, it actually doesn't feel good at all. But when you just, everything is clean living and you do yoga and you feel like really, you just feel really zen, and then you go and paint, and it's great. I started painting in lockdown at 6 a.m. once, and I was just laughing, thinking, oh, I've never done this before. You ever painted at 6 a.m?
No, not mornings, no mornings. That takes us to the next question. It's like, how do you keep motivated? It sounds like yoga helps you keep motivated. Do you hit flat spots, and what do you do about it? How do you get yourself out of those?
So I was thinking about this before. There's a lot of different ways that I tackle motivation, but one of them, when I really lose motivation, is where I feel like I'm going in the wrong kind of direction with my art, the content of it, or I feel like I should be doing something different. And I think the start of last year, I had a pretty hardcore point where I lost a lot of motivation about what I was doing. And a lot of the time I'll start writing things down. I used to journal quite a bit, and spider diagrams, don't know if that's what you call them over there, but spider diagrams, anyone who's listening to this, they help me a lot. And a lot of people that I talk to are having points, lack of motivation. I'd say, let's try a spider diagram, and it always seems to get people thinking in a different way. The first one I wrote was I felt a bit of anxiety, and I don't really go down that route very much, but I could really genuinely feel it, and I wrote in the middle anxiety, and then put it into categories of what might be causing it to do with art. So money, content, social media, put them into these pretty hardcore categories, and then put into each one all the things that might be causing me anxiety in these each areas, which was I'd class as the negative. And then I rewrote it, but all the reasons why they shouldn't be giving me anxiety. So that worked for one. But then as far as motivation and kind of, I just spread out into different categories, like what I like about my art and what's making me lose motivation. Why am I painting famous people? Why? Things like that, and sort of trying to really dissect it, because when it's just in your brain, it's just, what, you're getting nothing done. It's just going around, and you just, you're losing all your motivation. And by just dissecting every area and seeing that it comes to some sort of conclusion in each area, it's quite it takes a lot of the stress off. And before you know it, you kind of realize what your purpose was what you were doing. And you find a lot of inspiration by just getting to it again, just starting simple with something. I think a lot of people lose motivation by seeing people bossing it online and think, well, I'm so far from that
we just moved to
where
that
to start.
It is quite, I could safely say that I'll see anything that you put on Insta, and often, it's really entertaining or colorful, bright, positive. With that social media aspect, what are the pressures relating to that? How important is that side of the business to you, or your art journey to you maintain?
It's a funny one, because there's definitely two sides of it, where one is just you sort of how it makes you feel personally. I've experimented with taking quite drastic, I've taken like 3 or 4 months off Instagram, especially just to see what it's like. There was a point where I was just constantly posting stories and thinking about how stupid things I could do, and sometimes it takes you so far from what you're supposed to be doing with your art. And I was just thinking about it too much. I was looking at everything going, oh, it could be a story. And I was just like, I'm gonna take a break and take the app off my phone. And I had a big break. And as far as a personal thing and how it changes your mindset, you do feel quite good for a while that it's one less thing you're thinking of. But for me personally, from taking a break, you start to miss you being some sort of online version, and you feel like you want to get back to it. So it was good to go away from it and realize what I respected about that side is just personally so you just trying not to take it too seriously in that sense is something that's easier said than done. Sometimes you just can't help but take it seriously. And but I just try not to, as far as what I post, especially on stories, is like, but as far as the business side, like I got rid of Facebook finally. I just you find yourself scrolling, you're thinking, what am I even looking at on here, man? So I still have my Facebook art page, but I got rid of my personal one, and I don't regret that at all. But my Instagram, it is good for business. There's people watching me from, I think I'm going to be on a 6-part series in the next month on one of the main TV programs here about art. And I'm pretty sure they got in touch with me straight after they saw me doing a painting with a tennis racket. Why not? And that's happened quite a lot on there. And also a lot of people get in touch about, wanting to commission paintings. And it is a good platform, Instagram. I don't know how long it's going to last with all the changes that they made, where they're kind of suggesting to go more in the video route. But yeah, it is a good on Instagram. There's always someone putting way more up than you. It's just the way it is. And sometimes that can make you feel so crap, where you just feel like someone seems to have endless paintings and content, and you think, wow. And there's the dude that I is a friend of mine now, but I used to very much look up to him in the speed painting world, David Garibaldi. Like he is so impressive on his online thing. He's got a team with him, but you can just tell like he paints so many live paintings in his studio. He's constantly doing something, and it's something that sometimes you can look at, as we all do, and think, wow, man, I'm not doing enough. But he really shows his dedication towards it, and it comes down to, like, if you want to post more work, then a lot of the time you just gotta put more time in, dedicate more time to doing it. And I kind of find a lot of the time a sort of contentment where I kind of just go with the flow. And to post more work for the sake of it, you end up posting stuff that's, it's not your best work, and you're not really into it. And I think it's better to kind of just go with the flow and not feel like there's too much pressure that you need to post here. And it comes down to, a lot of the time, just, quality of work. Don't just post for the sake of it a lot of the time. And I try now to also send a lot of my work to, my friends, people who are honest with me before I post it, just to get a bit of an outside approach. And also, I have people in my studio building that are very dry, and they're from different areas, and they sort of come in, and generally their first reaction is something that I like to take into account. They come in and go, not sure about that background, and they don't have any art side to them. And I'm like, right, I'm changing it. I'll happily take on board, that general view a lot of the time. I don't mind it. I think it's really important. I'm not an artist who's like, no, because in certain areas like that, I quite like listening to what people say, because you stare at a painting long enough, you start to, I don't know, you get this weird relationship with it where some bits you don't even know what's right and wrong anymore. So, especially when because I did a black and white painting last month, and it was so much more relaxing to get from start to finish. I was looking at a black and white photo, I was like, just generally trying to get the colors right, the tones, and then added, my little extra bit to it. And it was like such an enjoyable process, and not thinking maybe that bit should be some sort of wild fluorescent red, and that bit in the background, what should the background be? Yeah, maybe think maybe I should do a few more black and white paintings. But
so Dave, what's the hardest thing about being a painter? You kind of just listed a couple of them, but if you had one thing that you would say that makes it really difficult to have being a painter as a career, what would you say?
Loads of things. I think it's a lot of painters that I meet that want to be full-time, and they don't. You realize that they paint once a week, or they do so little with it that you think, well, that's far from what you're going to have to be doing. And I think sometimes, I have full responsibility. I have to take full responsibility of when I'm painting, my schedule. And sometimes, realistically, from what I make, I could just sit on the couch for a few weeks before I'm starting to think, maybe I should do something. I could do that, but I definitely choose not to, both because I want to be painting, and also you have to think, in a work-wise way. And I think sometimes it can be quite tough when you're not working with people every day necessarily, and you're kind of working down your own route. There is I'm a very sort of extroverted person, and I've always laughed that I've picked a job where a lot of the time I'm sat in the studio painting on my own. And I'm not really a big fan of that. I used to work on cruise ships where, unless you were in your cabin, you're around thousands of people. And, I loved that. And my studio now, luckily I'm in a studio with more people that there's a guy who comes down, I play ping pong with him every day, all these little things, that are make it better. But I think, there's definitely a bit of a loneliness with being an artist, which I don't think some people, sort of a lot of time where you've just got to be very responsible of your time, and you have to create motivation, whether it's there or not. Inspiration finds you at work. You got to go in do it. And I feel like a lot of people might struggle with that at first, but yeah, it's worth it when the work you start creating. And for me, when I do live performances, it's so worth it, when I'm suddenly performing on stage. I've done all that time practice on my own, not necessarily at times when you feel like when you're feeling it, but then when you do a live painting especially, and you've put loads of practice in, it's such a good feeling. But I think I think it's hard for artists to accept how much time you really have to dedicate to finding your style and your sort of workflow. I've always done it, even in my 20s. I didn't really make any money for a long time, and all my friends had full-time jobs, and you're not making any money, and you're hanging around with them, and you're like, can you buy us a pint? It's draining, and you start to get into little arguments with your friends. You're like, why aren't you famous by now? And you're like, I don't even know how to answer that. But I just kept at it. I just couldn't accept that. I just kept at it and tried. Like where I'm at now, I found my niche and something that's, generally a sort of successful area. But I tried absolutely every area of art, from painting people's babies that I've never met in my life to, painting murals, and then doing mask design and fashion and animation, and then going and paying for courses, and just kept on trying different styles. And it takes you, 10 years plus to kind of find an area where, if you're selling commissions, people find a style that they like, and they want that style from you. And I mean, my advice would very much, that I've always said this, is just to not give up. Just keep going, just keep going no matter where you are, and you will start to find a style, I think. And with online, it is a great place to improve. I think I've never really done galleries myself, and it's definitely an option for artists to make a name for themselves just online from posting a lot. And we're all very different as artists, how we approach online, social media. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Loads of spider diagrams.
Yeah,
just write down.
Don't you worry. Spider diagrams. We'll be listing that. I'll be Googling. And you pretty much answered my next question, but basically something that we were talking about, that series coming up. That is, my question was about upcoming plans. What's this series, painting series, so we can follow it?
Yeah, I'm waiting to find out if I'll be one of the artists this week. But basically, it's a program where people have done extraordinary things, and they get kind of, just like the average person, not famous people or anything. They get put together with an artist, and the artists all have quite, interesting styles, exciting styles. It's meant to be a very positive, happy program. And we kind of get put together and do a painting. I get to know them, go to their hometown, and, a lot of these things. And it sounds very much up my street. I've been on telly quite a bit, but, a lot of it is you have a little interview, it's live, and then you do a painting. And as soon as you watch it back, you had so many more things you wanted to talk about, and you don't really get time to get across who you are. And this one, if I get on it, I'll have like a good solid 15 minutes of a half an hour show where it'll be me and someone, and, I get to do loads of takes where I can really say what I want to say, and well up for that. So, in that area, I went through a stage. Someone had got in touch who had been following me for years, and they were like, why, you really should have a TV show, an art-based TV show with all the things that you do, music and longboarding and painting and silly dancing. And I'm like, and she's in a position where it was really pumping me up, because she really could get me in that position. And I got so excited and went home, and, aside from painting, I just I really put some time aside and was just filming myself all around the house and trying to come up with all these skits. And, you know, it was so exhausting. I didn't really find what I wanted to get out of it. But I really, for a second, it's only until you really give time to things that you think you might want to do. It's only till you really give them a go that you get an idea of like what sticks and what's sort of like, yeah, maybe that's not for me. But you got to give it a go. You got to give the time to all these ideas that come into your head. You know, really got to give them a go. Sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll be driving along and I'll have to pull over and, you know, write it down or do a voice recording or record something whilst it's in my head. I really do try and appreciate that, because things go into the ether very quickly if you don't not note them down, you know, or give them a go.
Well, Dave, I think you're a perfect example of what we've been talking about. I don't like to use the word artist so much, but creative, because you come from, you know, beginning of music background. We don't really fall into one area anymore, especially with the new medias. So that sort of try everything and write a song and write a poem and try some different paint and get yourself in front of a screen. It's all creative, and it's that urgency. And the advantage of being an artist or a creative is we love learning. So it doesn't have to be the thing you're going to do, but have a go. And all of those evolve into what you end up doing. You can't see it at the time, but you're a great example of that. It says, get in, have a go, take the opportunity and see where it leads.
Yeah.
Before I forget, there's a great book called Daily Rituals. And it's about all the sort of famous creatives over the last few hundred years. And they talk, you know, in each chapter about like what their daily rituals were. Have you got it?
We've got it.
It's right there. You've got it in your hand. What this one?
It's only
it's so funny, isn't it? Because I think it's a great book for taking a lot of pressure off how people perceive that all great artists were all just like getting up at the crack of dawn, going for a massive run, and then working all day, every day to get where they're going. I think everyone's so different and finds their flow. And that book, I've listened to it a few times, especially when I'm feeling a bit lost, because, you know, some of them just did no work most of the time, and it's just really funny. I find it quite therapeutic to listen to what so many different approaches.
But I think, Dave, it's a little bit like you talk about yoga. You know, you call yoga a practice, and a lot of artists call what they do a practice. We're practicing to do it. And so it's about sharpening up those skills of, you know, whether it's a million drawings that you do or, you know, you go for a walk. It's that practice to end point. But, you know, I think the other thing we can think about too is a lot of artists, especially while everyone's in lockdown, if you think about some of those artists that were around in the wartime, they still got on with it, you know, and their life was a lot harder. You know, you think how amazing, like Monet was bollocked for painting pretty flowers and he felt bad most of the time for not going to war, you know.
It's funny you said Monet. Yeah, he was painting whilst he could hear gunfire like a few fields away, wasn't he?
Yep, and the farmers would charge him to paint and cross their fields because they thought he should stay in the city and not come to the country. So it's interesting looking at some of those artists of the past, because they do have some tips on how to get through stuff sometimes.
Yeah, but everyone is an individual. There's no doubt about it. I think something that really resonated that Dave said was it's the time. Like, you can try a million different things, but you have to give some solid time to things to then find your flow or niche.
Yeah.
It's not a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year thing. It's a constantly, you're in this constant state of evolution, but then it's a long way in before you can find that.
It's funny because like recently when I was at home, I didn't take any of my paints home, but was getting a bit itchy after a few days of not painting, and then started, someone told me about a Vans shoebox challenge. So I made out of a Vans shoebox, Vincent Van's Go, and I really enjoyed the process of making a collage. And then I did another one and made a parrot out of a box of Daz, and like, it's stupid, you know, it's what am I doing? But then, you know, the Euro Cup, you know, saw that on my Instagram and got in touch and were like, can you do one of these for the England team for the main event, you know, and the timing, unfortunately, I had a job the same day, but, you know, it was quite funny because it's not that stupid suddenly when someone, when someone gets touched, and I genuinely really enjoyed doing it. But that was just a great updated example of like giving time to something and not just, you know, if you really just try and take it to its conclusion. And I do that. Yeah, do that all the time. Especially with like mixed media and filming and stuff, you know. I think artists, creatives have to accept that, yeah, it's better to be at least a bit tech savvy and being able to the point where you can film yourself, and anything like that. It definitely helps to be able to edit things together. Yeah. So I've tried a lot of areas that have come back to help in other areas later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look,
I managed to get the whole interview without going, you know what I mean? Just did it then.
We have to finish it off with that. Love it. Thank you.
Know what I mean?
Thank you so much, Dave, for your time and the insight, because it's fascinating, and you provided so much information, so many great points. So thanks for inspiring.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we should leave you to it then too, Dave. We should leave you to start creating some new work, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm painting. Well, I'm working on a full new selection of plant paintings. I've been wanting to paint in plants for ages, and I bought this beautiful plant the other day. It's really colorful. It does all the work for me, I think. And I've been on my iPad for days, just planning out different compositions and color palettes. Yeah, I think I'm going to be a plant painter for a few weeks.
Oh, watch this space.
just suddenly it's good. That's what I feel like doing at the moment, and that's what I'm going to do. So, and yeah, I think I kind of want to change the paintings in my house as well. So, yeah, I think, yeah, watch this space. I think we're going through a plant painting.
Oh, I'm excited.
And then,
excellent.
Yeah, me too. That's what it's all about.
It is, absolutely. Well, thanks, Dave. And maybe this will be Sharp Part 1. And
yeah,
for sure, man. Yeah, feel free to say hello again. That would be great. And thanks for having me, guys. And good luck with future podcasts. Hope it goes well. I'll be listening.
Dave. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.